Hi, my name is Brandon, and over the past year, the Doula Cafe team and I have traveled across the U.S. researching this rapidly growing industry of CBD products. What we have found throughout the industry were products that were inconsistent in dosage and used ingredients that weren't even lab tested. Products with chalky textures, bitter aftertaste, and worst of all, confusion among the CBD consumers. That's why we created Doula Cafe. A 15 milligram, lab-tested, all-natural, water-soluble hemp CBD powder pack. It's odorless, colorless, and tasteless. Add it to your favorite drink of choice, wherever, whenever, on the go. Quickly find your calm, your balance, and your delight when you need it most.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for tonight's wonderful episode of The H, an honest conversation about health, hemp, and happiness. I am very blessed today to be able to have the one and only beautiful Ginger Kate with me from Banana Tattoo in Arizona. We are literally going to keep going west after that, and we're going to bring in an author. Her name is Miss Emily, and I should have asked her the proper pronunciation of her last name, so I didn't mess it up on air, but I didn't. So Miss Emily Thorax? She's laughing, so I'm close. I got her to laugh. That's what counts. Let me read her bio. And Kate, I hope you're excited. This one's going to be a good one. So she's the author of Loving and Living Your Way Through Grief, a comprehensive guide to reclaiming and cultivating joy and carrying on in the face of loss. She has gone through an experience of 2 husbands that have died, as well as deaths of her father, mother, sister, and many other family members and friends. Emily has much experience in the grieving process and has learned to face life with love, optimism, and joy. Her mission is to comfort and support those dealing with grief and loss, focusing on positivity. She has earned a master's degree in English with a concentration on writing, which leads her to her career teaching writing at the university level. She has naturally turned that writing into dealing with her grief. She also teaches those dealing with loss how to use writing to deal with their own grief. When she's not writing, you can find her tending to her garden, or trending in her garden, and creating art and walking the beach. Ladies and gentlemen, I am thoroughly excited to have on with us today Miss Emily, and I'm not going to mess up her last name again. She's going to help me say it correctly. Hello, Emily. How are you?
I'm great. Aloha.
Aloha. Now, I have to have everybody know, why are you greeting us with aloha?
Because I live in Maui, and that's where I'm coming to you from right now.
And now is where I get to have my fun. Miss Emily, I want you to know I've offered already before Kate got here. I have offered to be her servant and clean the house, take care of everything. I just want to live in Maui with her. And asked her if she needed a young, strapping, good-looking man to help with that. And she laughed like that. I took it as a yes and started looking up plane tickets. So, Miss Emily, it is a pleasure to have you here today. How do I properly say your last name?
It's Thiroux Threatt.
Thiroux Threatt. Thiroux Threatt. Can I just call you Emily?
Absolutely.
Whew, thank God. So, Emily, talk to me about your book. So, this is a fascinating thing because loving, living, and your way through grief. Like, I have to be honest, grief is something that's a sensitive topic for a lot of people. And to write a book about grief means you're going to be a master at this. And I want to know, how did you come to this and really start writing a book about grief?
Well, as you mentioned, I did teach writing for a very long time at the university. And after my second husband died, I was thinking, okay, here I am on Maui. I had only been here 2 years. He lived here before, a long time before. and wanted to come back when he realized that what was happening to him. So we moved here. And so in those 2 years, I was mostly with him and didn't get to meet a lot of people during that time. And I thought, okay, I'm here in the most remote place in the world, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. So I started writing about it. I was just writing for me. I wasn't writing like for a book or anything. But the more I wrote, the more I found that things that I did with my writing were really helping me. And I thought, I need to share this. So I didn't know that many people on the island, especially nobody who had recently dealt with somebody dying. So I formed a meetup group and invited people to come on over to my house, and we would write together. And they showed up. It was amazing. Great group of people. And we started out doing it once a month, and then they said, this isn't enough. Can we come every other week? So I said, sure. And it was really wonderful. So I knew I had something with what I was doing with helping people with grief. And then about 6 or 7 months after my husband died, a very good friend of his, who used to call him Dad, dropped dead. Just no notice, no warning. And we had been family friends when we lived on the mainland, and they lived a few blocks away, and we did family things together and everything. And I knew that his wife was not prepared in any way for this. So I decided I couldn't, take her a casserole across the ocean. I didn't want to email her because I figured she wouldn't be on the computer. I didn't want to call her because I knew she wouldn't feel like talking right at that moment, because this is just hours after he died. So I sat down and I wrote an email with everything that I could think of that she needed to know right then, what she didn't need to worry about or deal with, and what she did need to think about. And I figured she wasn't going to be opening her computer, so I sent it to a mutual friend of ours that lived just a couple blocks away, and she printed it off and took it to her right then. And she let me know later how much she appreciated that, because nobody said the things to her that I said in that letter. And because people don't know what to say in a situation like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like knowing you're not alone in that situation is everything.
Yeah.
Yes. You're thankful for what you do. So thank you for helping people.
Yes.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. Actually, from that letter, I thought I got to do more. So I ended up making some cards with pictures of Maui on them, 52 of them. So I could send her something every week for the first year. And I thought I better sit down and figure out what I'm going to say in these. And I ended up writing it like in a day. I had all 52 things written. And when I finished that, the writer that I am said, I think I've got an outline for a book. And that's where it came from.
I was going to say, did you come up with that idea yourself to write? I just think that is so unique, because that first year, no matter who you've lost, it's going to be difficult. And for you to be emotionally connecting to someone like that is so different. I applaud you. I really do. I love how you did that. Now, teach me. I've lost grandparents. I've had friends. I've dealt with grief, but not to the extent of losing like a significant other or a parent yet. How would you, like, if I'm going to read your book, because I have not read it yet, and I'm actually intrigued to, how would you recommend we start coming and helping ourselves comfort and grief?
First, take care of yourself and be easy on yourself. We tend to get very judgmental about what we do or what we didn't do when grief happens. It's like, I know one person who, when her grandfather died, she was just so upset because the last time she saw him, she was busy and she didn't say, I love you to him. And it haunted her forever. So she's now saying, I love you to the people that she loves, like every time she sees them before she leaves them, or she writes you an email or anything, it has I love you in it, because that hit her so hard. So sometimes we're really hard on ourselves for things that we don't really need to be.
Yeah.
And if you can figure out a way to deal with that, like I think it's kind of sweet to hear her say, I love you now, whatever the cause was,
Yeah.
It's a positive thing. So if you take really good care of yourself and don't just kind of disappear, which is
Mm.
easy to do. You don't stay in contact with friends and loved ones because it's just too hard to make a phone call or to go to somebody's house. You're waiting for them to come to you, and they're afraid to come to you because they're not hearing from you. So it's important to take care of yourself, and it's important when there is somebody that you would love to even have sit quietly with you and hold your hand. Ask them. They
Yes.
most likely would be thrilled to do that for you. They just don't know how to get started, just like you're feeling you don't know what to do that's going to help.
Right. Kate, I'm going to just stop calling you now. You tell your boyfriend to take a break. I'm just kidding.
It's my son and it's my business too, so I'm sorry. I apologize.
You're good. I understand. I actually have a comment that came in here that's perfect. It goes along with what you're saying. And then I'm sorry, Kate, I interrupted you. We find ourselves lost in that moment. Getting through those moments doesn't have to be a flip of the coin or on our long-term mental health. I think that's phenomenally said. With that being said, how do you respond to people who are dealing with grief to help themselves mentally stay strong and connected with people through a grieving process?
Well, I stay in touch with them, and that's a big deal. You wouldn't really realize that. I have, since I did those 52 cards, I've sent them to other people too when it's come up, and they have let me know, that it meant the world to them to get the card every week. They had something to look forward to, that somebody still was thinking about them, somebody still cared about them. Yeah. And they didn't necessarily have to write back. I have had very few people write me back, but they, when the year's over, they always let me know that it just meant the world to them that somebody would keep in touch with them, especially past, after the flowers are wilted and the friends have all gone home. After your celebration, then you're very much by yourself. And if you can do something to reach out to the person in times like this, it's really important.
Now, how do you break through to a person that doesn't want anyone around, but you know that they need help?
Contact them anyway. Sending them a card in the mail, they're going to open their mail eventually. You can leave messages on their phone. I just called to say I love you. I just called to check in and let you know I'm thinking about you. And if there's ever anything you need, I'm happy to do it. But don't stop when you don't get a response back.
Okay.
That's the key, is staying in touch and being open to them and not judging them. If they would just want to cry when you're there, then just hold them while they cry. If they want to rant and rave about how their loved one is taken care of, just listen. You don't have to comment on it. You don't have to think you have to do anything about it. It's just very important for the person to be able to express themselves and have somebody that hears them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I've experienced people that kind of have reclused or shut down or take it to the extreme, and they'll try to do things to themselves. And that's where it gets to a point where that's where you intervene, but you have to take other steps too. I know, but how would you approach something like that?
With love. That probably sounds kind of corny.
Actually, no, not at all, because my necklace that I wear, that's what it says is love. I think that life has to go through everything in life with love. And if you have to, that's the only thing that conquers evil. So.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. If you are dealing with the person with love, then they don't have to do anything to respond to it, but they're going to know that somebody out there loves them. Yeah. And that can make all the difference in the world.
So with that being said on that, how can people be there as support? Like, I know for some people, they shut down, like they get recluse. They want to be alone. That's their way of coping. And reaching out is saying, I love you. But let's say somebody's more of a long-term person with this, and you try being there and they keep pushing you away. How do you just keep sending letters? Do you just keep sending messages? Or do you try other ways of connecting with them through grief? Because I think people can get stuck in a mentality like that at times. And that's very difficult when you're trying to help someone to be there when they're stuck in that mindset.
One of the things I think is really important is to not assume somebody else is taking care of it, that somebody else is doing something for them.
Ooh,
Because a
point.
lot of times you say, well, I can't get a hold of them, but I'm sure that so-and-so is, or that they, they've got contact, or I know they have loved ones that live in the community, or don't justify things or make things up.
Yeah.
Just do what you need to stay in touch with them. An example for me was I wasn't going out much. I just didn't have it in me to call somebody and say, let's go do something. But a friend of mine called me. Her husband had died about, well, I don't know how long it was before mine, but he died before my husband died. And she called me and said that she, as a fundraiser for a group, a nonprofit in the community, they were bringing Patti LaBelle into town to do a concert. She goes, would you like to go with me? And I said, yeah, because she knew that was something that I wouldn't say no to, because it's a once in a lifetime kind of experience. And I just thought that there's no reason for me to say no. It's a safe place. A concert's a good place to go because everybody's doing their own thing. They're not paying attention to you. Even if you break down and cry, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, very true.
So finding things that you can offer that are going to be safe and be comfortable and be happy at the same time, while not ignoring what's going on with them. Still listen to them. But
question though, do you think that if your friend had not invited you to go to that concert, that you would have stayed in that same mindset and still recluse, or kind of? Like if you didn't have someone there for you, do you feel that would have been the same case?
I may have at that point, because I really I wasn't ready to do things by myself. I just really wasn't. One interesting thing I had happen was Jacques and I had gotten to know a doctor that worked in a practice where he was going for cardiology, and the doctor wasn't his doctor, but we just met him there, and Jacques could talk to anybody, and we got to be friends. And so whenever Jacques would be in the hospital, he'd drop by and say, hi, how are you doing? That sort of thing. And after Jacques died, he, a couple weeks later, called me and he said, I know how you like to go out. I know how you like to be involved in the community. And I know that it may be difficult for you to do that right now. So if there's any place you ever would like to have an escort, somebody to drive you, he said, I'm not asking you on a date. I'm just asking because I want to be there for you. He said, I'd be happy to do that. And so I let him, and we're still friends. He's a great guy. But that meant the world to me, that he just said, here, let me do this for you.
Genuine instead of the adverse of trying to take advantage of a situation. That sounds
it's
refreshing. You needed that, you know what I mean? So
that's hard to find someone like that in that moment. Like, and I say this as a guy, but like, how many men actually do that? And it's that automatic thought.
Not many.
Else right?
Yeah.
Like Kate and I was gonna ask Kate to move to Maui with me to help you, but I didn't want to come across creepy. I mean, she's already in Arizona, so
I'm sure I got kids. We can all help.
So I was reading. Lois has another good one. She says, "You're giving great advice. So, some of us cannot ask for help. We don't even realize asking isn't a weakness. A weakness. Greatest unknown healers in grief allowed me to celebrate memories and hug me when the tears came and find peace in loving memories." Thank you for talking about this. See, I told you we were going to talk about something good. With that being said, I want to talk about tears. People, like, tears are not a sign of weakness, especially in a moment like this. How, if somebody's grieving and you see them grieving, and I might not know them, like if I see Kate grieving, and I'm not like Kate's best friend in any way, I'm just the handsome guy that she does a show with. But if I see her grieving, I'm going to want to be there and just listen. How can people be around and just showing love and appreciation, especially, I'm asking a trick question here, with the economy we just had, we have we had lockdowns, we have COVID, and we were dealing with these amount of mental health and things that are broken in ways we've not seen. Now we're trying to comfort people and we're showing love in different ways. How would you recommend breaking barriers through a new time?
Not being afraid. Fear is one of the big things that came out of this last year. And really in life, there's two things. Kate, you mentioned the importance of love. There's love and there's fear. And if you can let go of fear, then all there is left is love. And it's important not to be afraid. If you see somebody or you hear of somebody, like people who've lost people from COVID, these things, a lot of them are really tragic, of not being able to be with your loved one, not being able to know what's going on, not being able to hold their hands. And that can be so hard to do. So it's all that much more important to let the person know that tears are absolutely fine. It's okay. They're cleansing. It's important to do it. For me, just recently, my birthday was on Monday, and usually with both of my husbands, they always did a big deal, and we just had a good time some way or another, getting together with other people or just doing something. And this time I thought, I just feel so incredibly alone this time. And I had tears on Monday. Now, Ron died 6 years ago now. You would think, not 6 years, 4 years ago. We moved here 6 years ago, 4 years ago. You would think that by now I would not be doing that anymore, but I still love him. I still love both of my husbands, and I always will. So tears are absolutely fine. I actually kind of felt better once I got through that period of time on Monday. And it's important to do that. And it's important to not have people tell you, oh, don't cry, or that was so long ago, aren't you over that yet? That's not helpful.
I think that's the biggest thing, telling somebody to get over it, or it's been too much time. That's so disheartening. I mean, people grieve in their own ways. Some people shut down and they've changed for the rest of their life after that. So the fact that you're inspiring others and you're using your grief as a superpower in this world, that's awesome. Like, seriously, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, I want to bring your website in for everybody to see. I just shared it. This is Emily's website, and I've been having some fun going through this. I was clicking around her blog. I was looking at sneak peek to sign up at her new book. Like, she has a lot. And my favorite is she starts everything with aloha. And I have to be honest, that is my favorite part of her stuff. So I show you this, and then I want to show you guys a little bit more about her, because Emily doesn't just have a personal journey of talking about grief. She literally uses her professionalism to not only sell a book to help you, but she's giving back through the sales of the book. And through each book, she has a social responsibility in business that a portion of proceeds of her book and the classes she teach will be donated to nonprofit organizations with grieving individuals and related issues. Can you tell us about these nonprofits and what made you choose them with such a sensitive topic?
Well, the two things, they're both on Maui. And the first one, Nakiki o Amalia, I chose because somebody introduced me to Amalia's mother. And she told me her story, that the mother was a psychologist, and her daughter was pregnant for the first time, and everything was happy and beautiful and everything. And she found a lump in her breast. And the doctor said, oh, it's just because you're pregnant. We'll worry about it later. Well, by later it had metastasized, and she left a young baby. And her mom decided she needed to do something in honor of her daughter. And she was concerned about her new grandson, that he would not know who his mom was and never get to really have a relationship with her, except for the very early part of his life. So she formed this organization, a nonprofit foundation called Nakiki o Amalia, where they provide grief services for children on Maui. And that was something that wasn't really here that much before she created this. And all the services are given for free to any children on Maui who are dealing with grief. And I think that's such a wonderful thing to do. I love supporting it. The other one, the Doorway into Light, is a really interesting organization here on Maui. Bodhi B is the person who runs it, and he is the one person on Maui who can do at-sea burials. He's a minister and can do whatever kind of service you want. He does lots of different things. He has kind of a different positive approach to dying. He trains death doulas. He was doing it annually. I'm not sure exactly where that is right now because of the pandemic, but people would come to Maui and do the training to become a death doula. And he also was running something called the Grief Cafe. And I had wanted to get to talk to people who were also grieving, but didn't really know how. And this sounded kind of casual, but it might work. And so I went to it. It was being held at a Mexican restaurant. We drank beer and ate nachos and shared our grief. And it was a wide range of ages of people who were there that had whole different kinds of experiences. It wasn't like all widows. It was people who'd lost a child, people who'd lost a husband. They had to do with accidents. They had to do with suicides. Everybody was in a different boat. But because we were all in that grief boat together, we could let our hair down. We could relax and be able to talk and say anything we wanted to because it didn't matter. It wasn't going to go outside the group. And it was a really, really good thing. And he ended up having because he does so much on the island, was having a challenge keeping it going. So I offered to take it over for him. And I did it for a while until, of course, we stopped being able to meet because of the pandemic. So he does so much for people in a different way and in a very positive way that has to do with death and dying that I like supporting it. And it's kind of, I don't know how to say it, off the beaten path, not your normal grief thing. And I like the idea of having alternative things to do to deal with grief. So that's why I chose those two foundations in particular to be my social responsibility.
I love that. Like, honestly, now I have one question with that. I'm sorry, Kate, you get the next one. Okay. I'll bite my lip. I know how much I talk. I apologize. So with that, you said you can come and get a lesson to be a death what?
Doula.
What is a doula?
A doula, most people recognize the word doula in conjunction with people having babies because they have people, it's like a support person through the end of your pregnancy, the beginning of when you have your baby, helping even with breastfeeding, helping you through labor. They're just, it's a support person.
Okay.
And they're popular really around the world. And I'm not sure where the concept of death doula came from, but it was kind of based on what people do for the beginning of life, doing the same thing for the end. So they'll go and sit with people who are dying. They'll go and sit with their families. They'll do whatever they want to. They are a safe place for the person talking that may feel that they can't express the kind of things they're thinking about and want to talk about to somebody that's really close to them because they don't want to bring them pain or make them upset. Yeah. So, and then they can be there then after, they can be there during the death. They can help you take care of situations that arise at that time. And then they can be there for the people who remain after the person has transitioned.
And see, doula, to me, that actually transitions over to hospice. Like, it sounds like it's a lot related to hospice. And so I did hospice volunteer work. And with COVID, that's the only reason why I couldn't keep going back. But it's hard because everyone takes grief differently. And the way that families, I mean, one person can be mad and all this stuff, and the other person can be breaking down crying. And it's just finding that common ground of like, okay, it's like the person that you're grieving and love, it's like, let's talk about them, and it's like happy times. And it's horrible and hard to see people spiral down in the opposite direction. And they don't want help, and they don't want they just recluse. And I think that's the biggest obstacle of watching that. So.
That's why I think it's so wonderful that we have things like doulas for both ends of the spectrum coming in and going out. That it's somebody to hold your hand in the process.
Exactly. It's like it's a spirit is a life, and it's like it all has that energy that flows, and it's so nice that they're finally seeing that grief is also needed and caring, and it's just amazing that you're doing what you're doing. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Wouldn't that be, and I'm asking, that's a very somber moment. And as someone who has I was a youth pastor at one point, I would go to funerals to support the family, and you show the love and support. Same type of idea, but different. But my thing is, wouldn't that be a very challenging job? You're dealing with death all the time, and how do you respond to handling that grief? Like, I can't imagine letting that go very easily. I just think of like always taking on everybody's like sadness, and I could be wrong, but like that seems like it would be extremely hard.
Yeah, the key is to not take on the sadness of somebody else. I've been exposed to so much death. My dad bought an ambulance company when I was 13 years old. And back in those days, you only had to be 14 years old and have an advanced first aid certificate to go on calls. So my dad was the first aid teacher in town. And so he made sure I had my first aid card by my 14th birthday. And I went on a call on my 14th birthday that was a head-on collision with two families out in the country where they were going very fast, and there were multiple fatalities. And that was such a wake up for me about the fragility of life. I looked at life differently from then on. And of course, I still own the ambulance company after all these years. I've inherited from my parents. And so I've been dealing with all kinds of different deaths for so long that I discovered that it was important for me to be compassionate, and it was important for me to take care of myself at the same time. Mm-hmm. And you can do both. You just need to realize that you need to do that so you don't go down that rabbit hole of sadness and somebody else's grief.
Yeah.
Which is easy to do when you're exposed to it.
I think, go ahead, Kate. Go ahead.
In a situation that it made you feel exhausted to where you couldn't get through to a certain situation or a certain person, or just have them see the goodness or come back to reality?
You know, whenever I was in a situation where something was going on, I could handle anything. I was really good at that. It was the drive home. The first time after I did CPR for somebody, I shook for like 2 days afterwards. And the person, I did revive the person who later died because they didn't really think she had had her heart stop. So, but I did my part, and I felt good about it, but it still is a visceral reaction that you have to things like that. And I think I'm probably getting kind of away from your question, but it's something of being aware of who you are, where you are, what would benefit you to focus on, and what would benefit on the people around you that are dealing with what they're dealing with, how you can benefit them at the same time. But it's got to be a balance. You have to have balance in that.
Sounds like it's definitely a balance. And that, is there a key to your balance? That's how you do that.
I love it.
Well, for me, it's love. You know, I know that it sounds like a broken record, but when you base everything on that, then you can't go wrong. You know, you might do things differently one time than you do the next, and that's okay. You just see what's going on in the moment and respond to that. And when you approach it with love and you approach it with kindness, you can't go wrong.
That's wow. So Brian Tracy actually has a great question here, and I think this is one that you're going to have some fun with. What advice would you give military / first responders when it comes to dealing with death on a frequent basis?
That's a really good question. And frankly, with owning the ambulance company, I've dealt with first responders all my life.
Yeah.
And what we try to do with them is to make sure that they're supported. If you're that person, if you're the one that works in the ICU and every time you go home, you've lost 3 people that day, that can't help but get to you. If you're the one in the field in the military and you see unspeakable things that are very difficult to get out of your memory, it's so important to have support and to not deal with things by yourself. And if at the start you can't talk to somebody about it, write about it. Write it. You can burn your journal when you're done if you want to, but write about the experience. The more you write the same thing, the less you'll have to write about it. If that makes sense. When Jacques had his first heart surgery, when I first would tell people about what happened and what led to it, this story was long. And I think people were yawning as I was going through it. But the more I told it, and then the more I realized I needed to start writing it down, the more I did that, the shorter the story got every time. And finally I got to the place where somebody would ask me about it. And I said, well, he had to have bypass surgery and he's doing really well now. And that's a difference from that gigantic story. So when you're dealing with somebody that, especially like a buddy in the military, and you lose them right in front of you, that's a trauma that's going to stay with you forever. But love yourself in the process, take good care of yourself, and share it. And it can be sharing it with your journal. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes you think this is just too unspeakable to talk to somebody about. And you may feel that way, and it may be that way, but you can write about it. You can say, this is how I feel, this is what I saw, and you'll find that the more you do that, the less you'll want to do it. And it's not that I wouldn't say get over it. It's that you put it in a special place in your life.
It's like you wrote it out of your mind, or not so much out of your mind. That way you don't have to carry it around anymore, like a post-it note on your brain. It gets
lighter and lighter and lighter as you do that.
I like that. I like the writing therapy.
Actually, I like how you're saying that. You like the writing therapy. So my question for that is, when you tell people that, I've noticed it really does make a big difference writing it compared to talking about it. It's almost like when you talk about it, you're carrying a wooden spoon of emotion that you're re-stirring things up. But when you're writing it, it's like you're taking the recipe and putting it down. And you're letting it be able to come out and be able to be the wonderful thing that it can be, like you're doing with it. How would you recommend somebody starts writing? Especially whether it's anger, grief, sadness, how do you even start? You just sit down and write? Because I can tell you right now, that doesn't work for me. I'll get on the computer and I start to type, and the next thing I know, a social media site bings or an email comes in and I'm distracted. But if I do pen and paper, I noticed I can write, but I can't read it then later. But like, for real, where do you start? How do you break that barrier to get that out of you and writing?
I've had several people tell me when they want to come to my writing through grief class, but they can't write, or they don't know how to write. And I say, it doesn't matter. You talk, if you can talk, this is what we're doing. You're kind of talking on paper. And I highly recommend having a journal and writing out in a journal. I actually, it's that time of year when it's back to school and they've got those little composition books that, with the kind of black and white covers on them. And right now they're on sale. They might not be still, but for $2 for $1 instead of $2 or $3 a piece. And so at this time of year, every year I go and buy myself a pile of little composition books. And then I can write as much as I want to about them. I give them to people. That's one thing. When I found when both of my husbands had issues in the hospital, I would keep a journal with me specifically for that, so that when the doctor said something, I would write it down right then and I wouldn't forget it. Like the recipe you were saying, to write it down. If you write it down, then you don't have to deal with it anymore. You know that it's always there if you need to go to it. And it's the same sort of a thing with it. So a gift is like that. It's really good. When I find out that somebody's got a loved one in the hospital, I just give them one of my little notebooks. That's why I buy so many of them every year, so I can give them away. Or when they first start a writing class with me, I just give them one of the notebooks and say, start here. You can get a big fancy leather-bound journal if you want to, but you don't need to. You just, it's important to, I think the physical process of putting that pen in your hand and writing it down makes a difference. And you'll find that things come out that you weren't even thinking about. If you just free your mind and commit to writing continually, like set the timer for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and commit to writing the entire time and not stopping to think about what you're writing. For instance, if you go, I can't think about what to write right now, if you write that down and nothing has come to you, and you write it again and you write it again, your brain will stop saying that, because your brain gets bored with that, and something will come out and your writing starts coming out. And you'd be amazed at the things that you discover. I just had a real breakthrough last night. I write a little bit before I go to bed, and I write a lot when I get up each morning. And last night, something I thought, why didn't I see that before? It's so obvious to me. But it only came to me because I was completely just not doing anything else. The room was silent. I usually put a little meditation music on, and then just write, and you'd be amazed at what you can learn.
Wow. So have you written other things? Like, I ask that, like, you only write about grief, which I'm sure you don't, but like, have you noticed that writing different things may affect? Go follow, by the way, guys, that's her link right there. That's Emily's link. Go follow her. Have you written other things that help you to, like, maybe when you are stuck, maybe when you are in a writer's moment, and like you said, you just write? Do you write other things? Like, I partially want you to say I write comic books, just because I think it would take everything in the left field. Like, that's in my head like that. But like, what other things do you write for you that helps? Yeah.
Well, a couple things. One thing, I do write other things. I've written 3 college textbooks, but that's not what you're asking about. But what I have discovered that helps me a lot was, I always thought I couldn't draw. And I thought, I'm going to take a drawing class at the art center here. And I did. And I loved it. And you wouldn't believe the things that I can draw now, because I opened up to it. And I'm not doing it to sell them to anybody or anything. I'm just doing it because the process, it's the same sort of process as writing. Yeah. You just do it until you're finished doing it. And it feels so good. You can be so absorbed in it that those thoughts about what's bothering you, or what you might be feeling unhappy about, or what you're going to have to deal with, they're not there. It gives you a chance to empty your mind and feel peace in a way that nothing else does. And the writing does that for me too, but it doesn't have to be writing. It can be drawing or painting or playing an instrument or working in the garden or walking in the forest or on the beach, where you're just doing something that you're totally absorbed in.
I love that. I love that. Do you have a question, Kate?
I know, because I know it's like, I battle grief. I battle everything too, but I am a person that recluses. I do like to write, but I notice that I don't have a lot of time. So that's, I think, my biggest obstacle. But I channelize more stuff internally. And so I think I like the fact of writing. I used to write a lot, and so I think I'm going to start writing again because of you, honestly.
Oh, good. Great.
Seriously, thank you, because you've inspired me. But I'm a tattoo artist, so I draw. And I love that you took an art class. I love that. I think that's so cool. But I love art too, because it is also a drawing therapy that you can never do it wrong. Like, art is emotion, it's expression, and there's no wrong way to express yourself in that form. So I love that. So
and You understand how you get lost in it and how that's a good thing. Well, one thing I can tell you, everybody goes to sleep at some point in the day and everybody wakes up at some point in the day. And those are the best times to write. When you say you don't have time to write, if you just keep a journal by your bed, then write a little something before you go to bed and or write something in the morning. There's a book called The Artist's Way. The author's named Julia Cameron. That one of the things that she suggests for artists is to every morning to write 3 pages in the way that I told you. I call it free writing when I teach it at the university. That you just put your pen to paper and you write until you're done writing. And she suggests 3 pages every day, and I do that every day. That I'll write things out first thing in the morning before I do anything else. I feel so much better for the whole day when I do that.
It just feels like it slipped it off you. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. So I think I need to start doing that then. So
it's a wonderful thing to do.
I think it's unique because I literally am listening and I'm going, damn it. I just was told by my guide that they were like, you need to put a journal next to your bed. And there's no more excuses, Brandon. You have to wake up, and before you touch your phone, before you touch anything, you have to start writing. And they're like, your mind has a block that this is what's going to push you through. And that you come on, Emily, and then you get Kate over here to like join you in this.
I'm excited. I know. I'm like, we're happy now. Thank you.
Right? Brian Tracy asks, would you recommend a voice to text app would have the same results as actually writing?
That's funny, actually, because when I do that, the things that come up are hysterical. Whatever it is that whoever it is that's listening and typing it out is not what I thought I was saying. I just had it yesterday. I was in the middle of writing a text, and my son asked me something, so I responded to him, and it all went into the text that I was writing. And it didn't say what I was saying. Everything was misspelled. It was goofy words that I thought, oh, gee, I'm so glad I noticed that before I hit send on the text, because they would have thought I was crazy. So it's I would say, if you want to do voice something, to do it to a recording. Most cell phones have a way that you can record on there. And that way, whatever it is that you say is what gets on the recording, as opposed to whatever the algorithms on the text recording things come across, because it can be quite strange, unless you've got a really good one, and that doesn't happen, but I haven't found one yet that does. But just pick up your phone and click on that. And I'll have times like I'm waiting in the car for my son to go in for an appointment or something like that, and I can just click on that recording and deal with whatever it is that I don't happen to have a pen and paper at that time. And it takes a long time typing on your phone, one letter at a time, but you can say it into that. And if you ever want to transcribe it, you can transcribe it yourself and work through it again. So it's a possibility, but I would recommend voice recording as opposed to voice to text.
Now, I was going to ask, do you ever reread the stuff that you've written down? And I know you said you came through a breakthrough just recently, but do you go over everything, kind of comparing notes with yourself?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm really surprised. Like when I get to the end of a journal, I just finished one of those composition books a few days ago, and I just kind of flipped back through it, and I thought, wow, what's happened since that? Because it was some pandemic stuff that was in there, and all the things that have happened are things I never would have been writing about before. But life has changed so much that it's interesting to have them there. So I keep thinking that someday I'm going to start going through all of my journals and, taking out the ones that I want to remember for something, and then having a ceremony and burning the rest of them, because it's not something that somebody needs to read all of it. But I'm sure that there are some significant things in there that I might want to save. I know Ron, my husband, journaled, and after he died, I was looking for his journals, and they were gone. There were a couple of them that I think he forgot that he had, because they were only a few pages, and he must have lost them or something. And so I found a few that I thought, boy, I wish I could ask him about what he said here that I hadn't seen him beforehand. But I think my belief is journals are just for you. And if there's something you take out of it, that's great. Something you get out of it, you can do that. Like I get inspiration, my blogs, I write a blog every week that you can sign up for on my website too, and to have it delivered to you, that it just depends on what happens to come out. Like today, I write my blogs on Wednesdays, and I thought, I don't know what I'm going to write about today. And as soon as I said that in my mind, what I was going to write about came to me. And I wrote about comfort today because I bought a bed yesterday because I needed to be comfortable. My bed the mattress had really deteriorated, and I was hesitant to let it go because it was the bed I shared with my husband. And I didn't want to not have that anymore. But I finally realized that I needed to have the comfort of a comfortable bed, that my husband would have wanted me to be comfortable, and that comfort in my life is important. And it's not just the bed, it's just that the bed triggered what I wrote about dealing with comfort. So a lot of times there's really great things that go on in our heads that just kind of pass right on through. But if you even write yourself a note sometimes and then write about it later, I'll do that sometime. If there's something that comes up and I'm in the middle of doing something else, that's a time that I'll use my messages or on my phone, the app where you can just write little notes. And then I can come back next time I'm starting to journal. I'll look at that before I do, and I go, oh yeah, I wanted to think about this and explore this and write about it then.
I love I think that's such a great way of helping people because they don't realize they're helping themselves. And it's something as small as just putting it right next to your bed. Now that we're saying this, Lois made a comment and I was waiting to be able to bring this in because I think this is very cute and very touching. Her father left her a note to find after he passed. His final advice, I now hold as my key ingredients to overcoming any loss. He said, find each other. Learn all the special things about each other. You'll never regret it. This removed my fear of death and shaped my view to the beauty of life that lived connecting a unique gift found only in humanity. And I just think that's
wow.
Right? Like I read that and was like, I can't just bring that in. I have to bring it in near the end to be able to talk about and say, thank you for sharing that, Lois. Now, I'm sharing Emily's book here. Everybody needs to go get it. It's going to be on Amazon. We all deal with grief. And maybe you're not going to send 52 cards. Maybe you're not going to send, you're going to have a hard time connecting with people. But at the end of the day, reach out and send them something through love, whether that is a note or Emily's book. And every copy of every book sold doesn't just help nonprofits. It helps gets me one step closer to living in Maui with her. Okay. So guys, go buy the book. Yeah. But so Emily, the way we end every episode is we actually give Kate, before I get into this, do you have any more questions? I should have asked that before I got it. I did this.
I actually, when you said that you would burn the pages that when you were done with them, I've done that with my children when I was going through my second divorce. I had us write letters and then we all sat around a bonfire and then just got everything out and then just burned it. And they felt so that sense of relief that just watching the little embers fly up in the air, it was just kind of, it was empowering in a sense, you know? So I like that concept. So thank you for touching base on that one as well.
You're welcome.
You really hit a very sensitive topic, Emily, and you made it such a conversational piece. And that is something that I think a lot of people need to be able to do in this world. And you honestly opened up your heart to people. And being a program that we focus on having an honest conversation, I thank you for your vulnerability and being willing to come out like this. The way we end every show, though, is we do a positive affirmation. It's hemp day, it's hump day, whatever you want to do. It's the middle of the week, and you want to get through the week with positivity and finish that hump to get into the weekend. All right. So we give a positive way of letting everybody go for the end of the episode. I'll start to show you an example, and then Kate will do one, and then you're going to do one before we say our goodbye. Okay.
Okay. Great.
All right. So, guys, this episode is one that, yes, we're talking about grief, but the thing is, that journal next to your bed that Emily talked about is so much more. That is your outlet to you. That is your outlet to finding who you are inside your soul. And sometimes we don't even know we have the key ourselves. So take today, put a piece of paper, if you don't have a journal, next to your bed, and just wake up tomorrow morning. And instead of worrying about what Kate and I did on Facebook, turn around and write for yourself. Don't look at your phone. Just look into you.
Go in today and try to do something for you. If you didn't get outside today and breathe some fresh air, get out there and breathe some in. Every day is a gift, and enjoy it.
Every day, every moment, appreciate that moment and live in love. Always. Love is everything that there is. So live in the moment with love.
Very well said. Very well said. So, Emily, thank you. 100%. We actually have a little bit of time left. Usually the goodbyes always end up going a few minutes. So that's why I prepare it. So everybody go to Emily's website. I'm going to bring it up one more time so you could see it to make sure you're going to the right page. Like, Emily, thank you. And so I have one question for you. Oop, I'm still on your donated page because I saw that when I was playing with your website, and I literally was like, I need to point this out because there's so many people that don't give back on things that they're giving, and it's like all about them. And you don't just do this; you turn around and say, no, we're gonna help people. So thank you for being who you are, Emily. What has been, and this way everybody knows where you're going. This is her website. Copy this. Go click it. Go buy her book. What has been a challenge for Emily that you would like to see the rest of the world be able to keep building up for themselves? That you could just, take this lesson and grow.
Oh, well, that for me is love. I think the last 4.5 years or so in our country, we've seen so much of the opposite of love. That if we could all just get focused again on doing the right things for the right reasons, being kind to each other, and focusing on what makes other people happy as well as what makes you happy, and always telling the truth, being in full integrity. If we could all do those things, wow, what a wonderful world it would be.
Right. Now you're getting into art. Do you have any tattoos?
Actually, I have 5 tattoos, little tiny ones on my knees because I had radiation, and they put tattoos to show you when you go in each time, they make sure that they're doing it to the right spot. So I have those 5 tattoos. I have tattoo eyeliner.
Okay, cool.
I was going to say, Kate, that's up your alley. That's like, I asked because Kate is a tattoo artist, and I read about your art and everything you're doing, and then we got to talk about it. So I was like, I'm going to connect you two in a way that, like, we're going to get a video of you getting a tattoo or something if you said yes. Like, I was like, we're going to draw it, have it out there. So it will be. So, guys, thank you for tuning in. This is The H, an honest conversation about health, hemp, and happiness. I got to be with the one and only Ginger Kate from Banana Tattoo in Youngstown, Arizona. And then we got to experience what it is like to deal with grief in the most fun way. And thank you for that, Emily. I will be moving in next week. Don't worry. I will make sure to find where I'm going. I'll pick you up along the way, Kate. Don't worry.
No, Arizona's along the way. Come on now.
All the way. We'll get there. Don't you worry. So, Emily, thank you again. Guys, check out her website. Make sure to share, like, and comment this. Thank you, Emily, for coming to the cafe today and joining us and bringing delight to the world. Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody, have a great day, and I'll see you all next week.